Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Bleach, Agent of the Shinigami Arc, Episode 20, Gin Ichimaru's Shadow. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief summary of what happened within this episode. So this episode starts with a bit of a flashback to the previous episode where Byakuya relayed the information to Rukia that she was about to die and that she's going to be executed. As he leaves the area, he is walking when he meets Gin and Kenpachi, who basically talk about how calm he was when telling his little sister that she's about going to die in 25 days. And the conversation quickly turns hostile between Byakuya and Kenpachi, and then Gin, to keep the peace, drags Kenpachi away as Byakuya then continues on his way. We then return to Ichigo. Well, actually, we see Shadow being able to use his arm to attack, so showing that he has since been able to release his attack, which he wasn't able to do in the last episode, which is the conclusion of Inoue and Shadow's training with Yoruichi. We then move on to Ichigo's training, and he's fighting against Urahara, and Urahara reveals that his sword is Zanpakuto, and it releases, and once it's released, it continues to cut the sword that Ichigo was using, which was the broken sword, into even tinier pieces until Ichigo just has the hilt left. And as he's running away, he admonishes himself for being a coward, for not standing up. And then Getsu appears before him again and basically says the same thing, like, "You're right, you shouldn't be running. This is cowardly. You can hear my name now. You can turn around. You can fight. Here's my name." And Ichigo then calls out his name, and his sword releases itself and essentially looks like an overgrown kitchen knife, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure it was meant to look cool, but it looks like a cooking utensil that's just a bit bigger and still looks like it's overcompensating for something just like his old one did. Anywho, we then have him being able to release an attack on Urahara, and it knocks his hat off, which clears lesson 3, which was to knock off or get at least one hit on Urahara's hat, which he has successfully done. And then we see Ichigo fall asleep on his sword after his attack. It then moves on to a slice of life little detour where we end up going to a fireworks festival with the school friends and Tatsuki and the family, Karen, Yuzu, and Ishin, and that happens. Inoue and Tatsuki have a conversation. Obviously, Tatsuki was revealed to have a stronger spiritual pressure, but unlike um, Shadow Ichida and Inoue, she hasn't unlocked any special powers, so she's essentially on Karen and Yuzu's level, where they can see ghosts, um, hear them, but ultimately like don't have any powers that are like offensive, and therefore she can't go. She also in her um martial art competition hurt her hand, and it is in a cast, so even if she had powers, she wouldn't be able to go. And she essentially says like basically encourages Inoue to follow her heart, to do what she wants to do, but to come back. And Inoue, of course, promises to come back. And then they watch the fireworks. The family also in another area watches the fireworks. We then have Ichigo on the day that he is meant to, opening his window per request of Urahara at 1 a.m. And once it is opened, a balloon of red stuff flies in the window, lands on the wall, and basically is a message from Tessai written in what looks like blood, basically saying, "Come to Urahara's shop immediately, and then P.S. If you think this looks like a dying message at a massacre, you have no comedic sense, essentially, as a P.S. at the bottom, which is exactly what Ichigo was thinking it looked like. And so then he heads out, and as he's heading out, his dad jumps off the roof, saying good morning to him because it is 1 a.m., so technically the morning, and gives him a amulet that belonged to his mother, or gives it to him but lets him know that he has to come back to bring it back, which is really sweet, though obviously they don't have sweet moments like that. They kind of ruin it with their personalities, but a sweet sentiment to give him an amulet that belonged to his mother and telling him that he's just giving it to him to borrow the luck that's in it and that he has to bring it back. And then Ichigo goes to Urahara's shop and is completely shocked to find out that Ishida, Shadow, Inoue, and Yoruichi are coming with him because all this time he had been training thinking he was going to go alone, but obviously everybody else around him had other plans and everyone else was in on it, but not him. And they then are taken into the underground room, which Inoue is impressed by, which touches Tessai's heart, and as apparently he is the one who built it, and liked that she had such a good reaction to it. And then they see a square with a lot of cracks in it, like a white square with a lot of cracks in it. I'm not actually sure what the drawing was supposed to be, like what it was actually made out of, if it was supposed to be some type of rock, if it was supposed to be some type of paper mache. Like, I don't know. If they said it, it wasn't translated very well in the subtitles that I'm reading. But either way, it is a gate that will take them to Soul Society, and it is specially made so that it can allow Ishida, Shadow, and Inoue, who are not souls but like living people, to be able to actually move to Soul Society as non-souls. However, because it is an illegal gate, they can only keep it open for a maximum of 4 minutes, so they have 4 minutes to get from the current real world to Soul Society, or they will become trapped between worlds forever. And then Yoruichi guides them into the gate, and we then leave the episode there. Now that we have been reminded about what happened within this episode, it's time to rank the episode. As always, we rank on the mostly objective ranking list, which is void emotion and uses set values to determine the score, but bias and judgment can still apply. And then the personal ranking, which is based on my emotional and emotional response to the episode and my opinion on the episode. So as always, we'll start with our mostly objective rank values. I highlighted those I felt applied, and we'll begin on the positives with our multi-arc supporting character introductions. And in this episode, we had 2 new characters that we got to see in Soul Society, who are both referred to as captains by Byakuya, and that is Jin Ichimaru and Kenpachi Zaraki. And they are each worth 3 points. We then have our multi-arc supporting character growth, and that is because we learned that Urahara not only has a Zanpakuto, but that his Zanpakuto is named Benihime. And he releases it in his training fight with Ichigo, and that is also worth 3 points. We then have our multi-arc main character growth, and this of course is when Ichigo learns Zangetsu's name and calls it out, releasing his Zanpakuto when it's just a hilt into his I know it was supposed to look cool, but it literally is an overgrown kitchen knife. That's what it looks like. But either way, it looks sharp, it has really cool magical effects, and it can leave a very deep gash in the landscape. So, still cool for an overgrown kitchen knife. And then, of course, we also, as an honorable mention, see that Ishida finishes his training and that he has a glove. Previously, when he was using his powers, he was using a little charm bracelet, like a little dangly thing off his wrists. This time he has a full-on glove, and that's supposedly what was in the box that he had opened in the previous episode when he was beginning his training. So that is revealed to be his new weapon. And we also see that Sato's obviously been able to call out his power as he makes a hole in a building that freaks out the construction workers down below when he finishes his training. And Inoue obviously is at this point, because she was able to call her power in the last episode, it is assumed that she also has made progress, though we do not see it in the episode. And that is worth 4 points. We also have a bit of world building, which is Urahara opening up a gate using what he calls soul exchangers. And he's using these soul exchangers as normally you would only be able to enter into Soul Society as a soul, but as Ichigo is the only one who can fight in a soul form as he is a Shinigami, and his friends rely on having their bodies and their soul power within their bodies, the soul exchangers are going to allow them to take their real bodies, so their current state, into the Shinigami realm or like the Soul Society with him. And unfortunately, the gate will only stay open for 4 minutes, and they have to make it to the other side within that time frame, or again, they will become forever trapped, as I said in the summary. That is worth another 4 points, bringing us all the way up to 17 points. And then there was one negative that I put in there, and I put this in there unsure whether or not it was actually. So basically, I feel that the goodbyes that were put in there, that little detour into the slice of life category, with the firework festival and Inoue and Tatsuki having their goodbye moment, and then, Ishin giving Ichigo the amulet that belonged to his mother, sweet moments, probably meant to elicit more of an emotional response than it actually ended up doing. And because I highly suspect that there was supposed to be a much larger emotional response to those moments, that's why they went through the trouble of putting those moments in there. I do think that was a failed emotional impact, because while I thought in the case of Ishin's moment at least that it was sweet giving the amulet that belonged to the mom, because we learned in previous episodes how much Ichigo's mom meant to him, it didn't like hit you in the feels the way some other moments had done in previous episodes or in future episodes. And I think it was supposed to. I think the only reason they would have had to put those particular scenes in was to elicit an emotional reaction, and they failed to really get one other than an kind of surface level, that's so sweet. So that's why I put that in, and that is worth -3 points. However, that still leaves us with 14, making this episode a 10 out of 10 objectively. And this is the final episode of this arc, which means we now have this arc's definitive ranking list. As a reminder, when we are ranking on the mostly objective ranking list, when more than one episode has the same score, they will be ranked in episode order. And therefore, our final list is as follows. In first place, we have The Day I Became a Shinigami. Second, The Shinigami's Work. Third, The Older Brother's Wish, The Younger Sister's Wish. Fourth, Fight to the Death, Ichigo vs. Ichigo. Fifth, June 17th, Memories in the Rain. Sixth is Unbeatable Enemy. Seventh, Back to Back, Fight to the Death. Eighth, The Encounter, Renji Abarai. Ninth, Ichigo Becomes a Hollow. This episode is 10th, Gin Ichimaru's Shadow. 11 is Greetings from a Stuffed Lion. 12th is A Gentle Right Arm. 13th, Flower and Hollow. 14th, Ichigo Dies. 15th, The Legendary Quincy. 16th, Beat the Invisible Enemy. We then go on to 17th, Casual Soul Realm Assault Trip. 18th is Reclaim the Power of the Shinigami. 19th, Curse Parakeet. And then in 20th place, Khan's Great Plan. So personally, I did like the episode. I I'm sorry, I just can't get over the overgrown kitchen knife. I do like that he learns Zangetsu's name finally, after having met him in the previous episode, but him not being able to hear the name. I like that we've gotten the growth to now he can hear the name. I just wish it wasn't an overgrown kitchen knife. I mean, they have some pretty cool designs for other people's swords in the future. Spoilers. That a lot of the Shinigami have really cool designs on their Zanpakuto and stuff. And I just feel like overgrown kitchen knife. I mean, I guess it does look cool. It's got like the bandages on the handle, but I just don't know that I think kitchen knives as weapons are particularly the coolest thing that's ever existed, you know? But I love that he was able to open it, and I loved the like the effects that they drew in for when he's awakening his Zanpakuto. There's like this icy blue light that kind of swirls around him with like him being in a node in the middle and then, you know, a little bit of mistiness. Like it's beautiful coming in through all the rocks in the underground area. And then, the light shines super bright and it bursts away to reveal the overgrown kitchen knife. So lackluster, but beautiful effect. And then and then he's like, "Oh, Urahara, you better start running because I cannot hold back." And he immediately like throws it down and like the light it goes zooming and we see Urahara's hat fall off or fly off really. And it's revealed Urahara put up a shield and we see a deep gouge in the landscape afterwards before Ichigo then falls asleep on his sword, which also is a bit amusing. Um, so that was really cool. We got a lot of character progression. We got everybody kind of finishing up their training so that we can then enter into the next arc with everybody powered up. And I like that they did keep a lot of the training secret. Like it shows like the beginning of the training, but it doesn't show the end result. This way we can be surprised in the next arc as they start using their new powers or their upgraded skills and be able to like see that and be surprised. So I love that they did that. Great choice. Like I said, the goodbyes, I understand why they're in there and what their purpose was. Didn't really hit for me personally, but I did think the fireworks looked pretty, like they were drawn looking nice. And it was some cute moments, like they were sweet moments, they weren't negative, just they didn't hit deeply. Um, and then we have them going through the gate and the gate being explained, which it needed to be explained. And that sets us up for the next episode. So overall, I feel like everything that was in the episode should have been in the episode. There were some things that amused me personally that maybe other people wouldn't find as funny. Like, I highly doubt there are many people out there laughing every time they think of his sword, but I'm one of the people who do. Overall, great episode. But again, that slice of life detour didn't hit for me. Some of the other things weren't as exciting as they could have been. I find his sword hilarious. Oh my God, I feel so bad for laughing every time I think of it, but I found his sword amusing rather than cool, as it was probably meant to be. And so for that reason, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 because it was very strong. I'm just going to repeat myself again, so I won't repeat myself again, but 9 out of 10 official. And that brings us to our definitive arc ranking for the Agent of the Shinigami arc on the personal side. And in first place, we of course have the best episode that was undeniably hilarious from start to finish, Casual Soul Realm Assault Trip. In second place, we have Ichigo Becomes a Hollow. This episode I ranked in third place, Gin Ichimaru's Shadow. Fourth, Back to Back, A Fight to the Death. Fifth, The Encounter, Renji Abarai. Sixth was The Older Brother's Wish, The Younger Sister's Wish. Seventh, Beat the Invisible Enemy, which is invisible. Eighth, the A Gentle Right Arm. Ninth, The Legendary Quincy. 10th, The Shinigami's Work. 11th, Cursed Parakeet. 12th, Unbeatable Enemy. 13th, June 17th, Memories in the Rain. 14th, The Day Became a Shinigami. 15th, Ichigo Dies. 16th, Reclaim, The Power of the Shinigami. Then in 17th, Greetings from a Stuffed Lion. 18th was Flower and Hollow. 19th, Fight to the Death, Ichigo versus Ichigo. And in last place, 20th, matching our objective, Khan's Great Plan, objectively and personally, worst episode of this arc. And so we come to our series ranking so far, which is our final segment. And because we have officially ended this arc, this is the last episode of the Agent of the Shinigami arc, we have our final score for this season. So, on the mostly objective, Agent of the Shinigami arc earned 168 points out of a possible 200, and that means it ended with a total score of 84%, which is very good. On the personal ranking, however, did not do as well, and honestly, I expected this because my favorite arcs, personally, are still to come. But it earned total 126 out of a possible 200 points, and that had it finishing at 63% as its final score. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Bleach, Agent of the Shinigami Arc Episode 20, Genichimaru's Shadow. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.